Are you worried about the total indebtedness of the United States producing inflation, or you don't think that's a big problem?
Yeah, it's not the level of debt. I would say the thing I'd say about the level of debt is really it's not. First of all, it's not the Fed's job, but I would say that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path at the federal government level. That has been the case for some time, and it's something we will have to deal with. And it's better to deal with it sooner rather than later.
Last week, commenting on the FOMC's decision to raise the Fed discount rate by a small amount, relatively speaking, 25 basis points. Some people would say that was small. But at the time, it wasn't clear that the jobs report would be as strong as it turned out to be subsequently. Had you known that the jobs report was going to be as strong, would you have done 25 basis points or something different?
David, thank you for that question, and thank you for inviting me here today. It's great to be here. So we don't get to play it that way, unfortunately. We have to, but I'll take it this way. So the message we were sending at the FOMC meeting last Wednesday was really that the disinflationary process, the process of getting inflation down, has begun, and it's begun in the goods sector, which is about a quarter of our economy. But it has a long way to go. These are the very early stages of disinflation. So the services sector, really, except for housing services, pardon me, is not really showing any disinflation yet. So our message really was this process is likely to take quite a bit of time. It's not going to be, we don't think, smooth. It's probably going to be bumpy. And so we think that we're going to need to do further rate increases, as we said, and we think that we'll need to hold policy at a restrictive level for a period of time. Then comes the labor market report for January. And it's very strong. It's certainly stronger than anyone I know expected. And so, but I would say we didn't expect it to be this strong, but I would say it kind of shows you why we think that this will be a process that takes a significant period of time. The labor market's extraordinarily strong. And by the way, it's good. It's a good thing that inflation has started to come down without it. That has not happened at the cost of a strong labor market. So, and of course, since then, financial conditions have tightened significantly since then.
Your speech last week, the markets assumed that therefore there would probably be another 25 basis point increase in your next FOMC meeting. Was that a bad assumption by the markets?
So what we said at the meeting was that we believe that we anticipate, is what we said, that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate. And the reason is we're trying to achieve a stance of policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. And we don't think we've achieved that yet. So we said that, and now you see the labor market report, and I think, again, financial conditions are more well aligned with that than they were before.
So the assumption when you made your speech was that probably the Fed might even consider decreasing rates by the end of this year, and the markets no longer assume that. You think the markets are wrong?
Well, so let me say, these are all of these numbers that we're throwing around here are conditional on incoming data and what happens. So we never say this is what we think will happen. We make a tentative forecast and then we let the data come in. For example, if the data were to continue to come in stronger than we expect, and we were to conclude that we needed to raise rates more than is priced into the markets or than we wrote down at our last group of forecasts in December, then we would certainly do that. We would certainly raise rates more.
Okay, so
welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, the first 25 seconds of this video is the most powerful 25 seconds that you'll ever listen to. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. Because I give you the truth, nothing but the truth. Yes, the truth hurts, but it sets you free. And we had Jerome in the house today, and I wouldn't even call this an interview. This was a way of mainstream media to praise the Fed. But Jerome stated that right now, the federal government, we are in an unsustainable path. And you should ask yourself, why all of a sudden we're in an unsustainable path when we've had the longest expansion in history? Only thing they're doing is printing more and more money. Why? Because they're ready to turn on the fourth industrial revolution. They're ready to destroy the legacy economy and the United States world reserve currency. So Jerome Powell basically told you there's going to be a lot of federal government spending cut. So a lot of programs are going to be going away. And Jerome Powell stated the same exact thing he stated at the Fed meeting. And there is nothing dovish of what he stated. But we know the mainstream media is going to say something different. He clearly stated they're not done, and he said they're going to have more rate increases. And he said increases with an S, plural. That means more than one. And we know it takes a year to 18 months for these interest rates to seep inside of the economy. And March is going to make a year. The only thing we have to do is look at the inverted yield curve and let us know the crash is coming. And remember, the crypto teacher told you because he knows. When it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Economy is strong. And as I mentioned, it's a good thing that we've been able to see the beginnings of disinflation without seeing the labor market weaken. It's just that there's a lot of demand for workers. In fact, if you look at the supply of workers versus demand for workers, demand for U.S. workers is now more than 5 million greater than the available supply. And the available supply consists of people who are either working or actively looking for a job. So this was not the case before the pandemic. The pandemic really had a significant, left a lasting mark so far on labor supply in the United States. The labor force participation rate came down, and there now is a shortage of workers, and it almost feels more structural than cyclical. So that's a significant issue.
Now, you've resisted, I think, saying what unemployment rate would be acceptable to you, I think. But is there an unemployment rate that you think would moderate inflation such that you would tolerate unemployment at 4%, 5%, 6%?
I guess I think about it this way. We have two goals that Congress has assigned us: maximum employment and price stability. Price stability, as we've agreed, is 2% inflation. Maximum employment means if you want a job, you can get one. So right now, the labor market is at least at maximum employment. But many would say that it is out of balance with more demand than there is supply. So what we're trying to do is get inflation down. We're not targeting a different unemployment rate. We're trying to use our tools to get inflation to come down over time.
In hindsight, would you say that when COVID hit,
I think you have to go back to the decisions that were made in real time, and it was something nobody had ever seen. The global economy came to a virtual standstill. People were talking about depression. People were talking, and we didn't think we had no idea when we would get vaccines that worked. So Congress took very strong measures, and we took very strong measures. And you see where the economy is. You've got a very, very strong labor market, but you have high inflation. As I mentioned, we're at the beginning of getting that down. If you look around the world, though, at other countries, they're also experiencing high inflation, including countries that didn't do as much as we did, either from a fiscal or monetary standpoint. So that tells you, though, that a big part of this inflation is actually related to the pandemic itself, the shutdown and then the reopening. That's a big part of it.
Now, the quantitative easing program has increased the balance sheet, I guess, of the Fed. And what is your balance sheet now?
I think it's $8.4 trillion.
You must sound like you know. Sounds like 8.4 trillion.
That was yesterday's number.
Okay, all right, 8.4 trillion. What would you like it to get down to over the next year or two? Is there some lower number?
So we are in the process of shrinking the balance sheet actively, actually passively, I should say. So what happens is, as Treasury securities on our balance sheet mature up to a cap, a monthly cap, the balance sheet shrinks in that amount. Same thing with mortgage-backed securities as they are prepaid the balance sheet is shrinking. In terms of the target level of it, we haven't put a specific dollar number on it. The idea is we're in a regime of ample reserves. Reserves are basically deposits at the reserve banks. And when we get close to that level where we feel that reserves are ample, kind of where we were before the pandemic, then we'll slow down and we'll sort of test where we are. But it'll be a couple of years, we think, till we get
in, right? You're not in the market selling securities that are not yet mature. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's also correct, though, that we've said we would consider sales of mortgage-backed securities, but I will tell you that's not something that is on the list of active things being actively considered.
So, worried about the federal debt limit, and if we might not be able to extend it on time. We have $31.4 trillion of debt. Are you a little worried about the debt limit not getting extended?
So the debt limit is really something for the fiscal authorities to deal with. The Fed, our only role in this is that we're the fiscal agent of the Treasury Department. We're not a policymaker on that. And I will just say this: this really can only end one way, and that is with Congress raising the debt ceiling in a timely fashion, so that the U.S. can pay all of its bills when and as due. That's what has to happen. And if that doesn't happen, no one should think that the Fed has the ability to shield the financial markets or the economy from the consequences of moving too slow.
So you don't have any program in place ready to go if, in fact, the debt limit isn't passed in time.
This is something that Congress has to deal with.
And the so-called $1 trillion gold coin solution is not one you're in favor of, I guess.
As I said, this ends in only one way, and that way is Congress voting to raise the debt ceiling so that the U.S. can pay all of our bills.
Okay, right? That's mostly it.
I think the biggest challenge we face at the Fed is completing the process of getting inflation down to 2%. And what I want to point out is that we're seeing disinflation in the goods sector. We expect to see it in the housing services sector, and these are the three parts of the core PCE inflation index that we look at. There's 56% of the economy, which is the rest of the services sector. It's the biggest part, obviously. And we're not seeing disinflation there yet, and that's going to take some time. And we need to be patient, and we think we're going to need to keep rates at a restrictive level for a period of time before that comes down.
So when you made your speech the other day, when you talked about the Fed discount rate, you used the word disinflation 11 times. Not that I'm counting, but 11 times. So you were saying that disinflation is beginning to appear. Would you use that word 11 times again today after the jobs report, or would be less inclined to use that word so much?
I might use I might say I would certainly use the word disinflation, yes, which means declining inflation, and I would call it declining inflation too.
And today, what about the total debt of the United States, which produces some inflation, 31.4, leaving aside the debt limit? Are you worried about the total indebtedness of the United States producing inflation, or you don't think that's a big problem?
Yeah, it's not the level of debt. I would say the thing I'd say about the level of debt is really, it's not. First of all, it's not the Fed's job, but I would say that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path at the federal government level. That has been the case for some time, and it's something we will have to deal with. And it's better to deal with it sooner rather than later.
Now, many of
going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, We have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.